Hi there and welcome to the Tour Guides Travel Guides. I'm Rich Jones, professional tour guide, and yes, you can trust me. Now today we're going to explore the vibrant and important little market town of Stratford Upon Avon, Warwickshire, here in the heart of England. Incredibly busy tourist destination. The reason for that is it's right here, the birthplace of the great bard himself, the greatest playwright of them all, a poet, the William Shakespeare. Almost 5 million visitors here every year come to pay their respects, to partake in their own forms of bardology and immerse themselves in all things Shakespeare. So come with us, let us show you Stratford our way, the Tour Guides Travel Guides way. Let's do it. Okay, so as per, I'm trying to find a logical place to start this walk around Stratford, and I always tend to plot up here at the top of Henley Street, the main pedestrian street here in Stratford. The statue, Touchstone the Jester from As You Like It, was a gift from Anthony Reed. Actually, James Butler's the designer. Interesting guy, actually. He designed a lot of our modern coinage. So use this as your landmark, top of Henley Street, as I say. Now we've actually parked on the other side of town, but there is car parking, the multi-story, just around the corner. It works out about £1 an hour or £6 for 9 hours, which is, for town centre, is not bad at all. Also around the corner there you've got public restrooms, which will do the job. It's 20p for a p here in Stratford Upon Avon. So we're going to progress down Henley Street to check out the birthplace and the visitor centre of the Shakespeare experience. But also, if you're patrolling down here, you are spoilt for choice for eateries and cafes. So really, just to eat on the go would be my recommendation. So Touchstone the Jester, your starting point for the Stratford tour. So a little further down Henley Street, not that further down, we come to the Shakespeare Centre, which is the main entrance to Shakespeare's birthplace. Fascinating insight into Shakespeare's early life, and also an insight into a relatively well-to-do middle-class English family during Tudor times. But this is where you come. You'll notice above the doorway the Shakespeare's crest, the coat of arms he managed to achieve for himself in 1596. In there you have a museum of all things Shakespeare, but also, most importantly, you have the first folio, which is a collection of 36 of his plays put into book form by his greatest friends and colleagues. So after the exhibition you then enter into the garden at the back of the house, which you'll be able to see there, the four rooms you get access to, see where he's actually born on, well, they say on or about the 23rd of April 1564. And of course he died on the 23rd of April 1616 at 52 years old, so kind of a bit certain symmetry there, don't you think? But that's where he's born. We're going to have a look at that actually while we're down here. Oh, so as you can see, we're outside the birthplace, as it's called. This is the house that his father, John Shakespeare, and his mum, Mary Arden, bought in 1556. This is where William was born, in the upstairs room there, which if you go in you'll be able to see that. Shakespeare's father was a glove maker, actually relatively successful on as well. He became a city alderman as well, so essentially right-hand man to the Lord Mayor. So I think the family lived on the left-hand side. You'll be able to see the crest above the doorway there again, and the right-hand side was actually the glove making shop. And it's thought that between school and whatever, William was actually helping in his father's shop. But it really is a brilliant visit. Actually, behind, when you go there, more often than not, there are Shakespearean presentations, and they do actually take requests there. But it's quite evocative to think that this guy who became, you know, a household name all over the world, this little young lad from the simple market town, Will Shakespeare, that's where he's born. And we can see all our friends here, even in the winter months, busy, 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 and they're here too. When you've finished your Shakespeare experience here, this is where you exit through the gift shop. Of course you do, but however, I've got to say, this is actually a very tasteful and nice gift shop. Lots of really fascinating books and souvenirs all about Shakespeare himself. So that's where you're going to exit. What we're meant to say actually is what a really cool thing to do is, because we're going to be walking around town a lot, seeing a lot of Shakespeare properties. There's actually a ticket you can buy right there at the Shakespeare Centre that will cover all 5 properties for a very reasonable price. We'll discuss that as we go around. But what we're going to do now is actually head down to the bottom of Henley Street. I think Greg can just maybe point out the Barclays Bank, the white building with a green copper roof at the top. That's a landmark for you. So at one end of Henley Street, top end, you've got Touchstone the Jester, your starting point, and another landmark for you, Barclays Bank, the white building. And as we're coming down here, shops, eateries, pasty shops, coffee shops, you're spoilt for choice. All right, Barclays Bank, bottom of Henley Street, the white building. Come and have a look at this. We're at the junction of Henley Street and the High Street. Across the ways there, you're going to see the black and white timber building. It says Crabtree and Evelyn. It's now, I don't know, Posh End Pharmacy or something along those. But back in Shakespeare's time, that's where Shakespeare's youngest daughter, the twin Judith, lived with her husband, the wine merchant, a man called Thomas Quiney, who was a womanising drunkard and a general ne'er-do-well. What we're going to do now, guys, we're going to pop down Bridge Street, take us right down to the riverside and see the original ford where the street crossed over the River Avon. Down at the bottom of Bridge Street we came to the waterside, the Bridgefoot Bridge going across. Now I have been told that it's this actual point that where they could ford the tributaries to the River Avon. So the name Stratford is actually quite literal. Strat from the Old English street, the street, ford, to ford the river. That's the point I am told. The secondary option is up by Trinity Church. We'll have a look at that later on, but generally accepted this was the place where the name originated from. Stratford upon the River Avon. Right, on we go into Bancroft Gardens, just a little further down from the ford, and we come to the famous Gower monument donated by Ronald Gower, who actually sculpted it and financed it himself. And it's the great bard himself, William Shakespeare. Bard is actually Old English basically for poet. There he is on top, been visited by the pigeons, you can probably see at the top. But around the Gower monument you've got 4 of his probably most famous characters. In the foreground here, Sir John Falstaff, representing comedy. Falstaff apparently was inspired by a character who used to live in Sheep Street, just around the corner from Shakespeare. Away to the other side you've got Lady Macbeth, wringing her hands, representing tragedy. On this side we've got Prince Hal, history, and on the other side we'll see shortly, of course, is Hamlet's representing philosophy. So that's the Gower monument, erected here in 1888. Now here's the thing we've got to consider. This one man coined over 3,000 different words and expressions to the English language, many of which are still used this very day. Now I'll give you a little example actually. I'll tell you a story from a long time ago. I took my late great Aunt Bee to a production of Hamlet in London, and at the end of it, as traditional, we went for dinner. And so I said to Bee, I said, what did you think? Did you enjoy it? She said, well, Rich, you know, it's all right. She said it was all different words and expressions. It was all Greek to me. I said, well, there you go. You're quoting Shakespeare already. So if you're more sinned against than sinning, you're quoting Shakespeare. If you recall your salad days, you're quoting Shakespeare. And so it goes on. So we've got a little list of what this man donated to the English language. If you recall your salad days, we've been there. If you act more in sorrow than in anger, if your wish is father to the thought, if your lost property has vanished into thin air, if you have ever refused to budge an inch or suffered from green-eyed jealousy, if you have ever played fast and loose, if you have ever been tongue-tied, a tower of strength, hoodwinked or in a pickle, if you have knitted your brows, made virtue of necessity, insisted on fair play, slept not one wink, stood on ceremony, danced attendance on your lord and master, laughed yourself into stitches, had short shrift, cold comfort, or too much of a good thing, if you have ever seen better days or lived in a fool's paradise, why, be that as it's may, the more fool you, for it is a foregone conclusion that you are, as good luck would have it, quoting Shakespeare. And if you think it is early days, and clear out bag and baggage, if you think it is high time, and that is the long and short of it, and if you believe that the game is up, the truth will out, or even if it involves your own flesh and blood, if you lie low to the crack of doom because you suspect foul play, and if you have your teeth set on edge, and at one fell swoop without rhyme nor reason, then to give the devil his due, if the truth were known, for surely you have a tongue in your head, you're quoting Shakespeare. And even if you bid me good riddance and send me packing, if you wish I was dead as a doornail, or if you think I'm an eyesore or a laughing stock, the devil incarnate, stony-hearted villain, bloody-minded or a blinking idiot, then by Jove, oh Lord, tut-tut, for goodness sake, what the dickens, but me no buts, it's all but one for me. You're quoting Shakespeare. Moving slowly on, we've just dropped down from the Gower Monument up there in Bancroft Gardens. We've come down to Waterside actually to see the River Avon, Stratford Upon Avon. Avon is a Celtic word for river, Afon, so essentially we're looking at the river if you will. So we're looking downstream with the swans and the ducks and whatever. We'll be able to see the nice spire of Trinity Church, Holy Trinity Church. That's where Shakespeare and his family are buried, the family tombs in there. We'll be heading down that way shortly and coming back a little bit the way. Massively refurbished Royal Shakespeare Theatre, which we'll be heading to momentarily when we get into Waterside Gardens. Just a little location finder for you here. You buy actually what's called the Tramway Bridge, but this beautiful, quite evocative sundial, and it's a huge commemorative plaque to the Warwickshire Fire and Rescue for all the sterling effort and good work they do. So here we go, Waterside, sundial, Royal Shakespeare Theatre, and of course Trinity Church, and of course the swans. We've moved up from the river into Waterside Gardens at the bottom of Sheep Street, but I wanted to point this one out. Fantastic Swan fountain statue. It was installed in 1996 by Her Gracious Majesty Queen Elizabeth II to commemorate the 800th anniversary of King Richard I granting Stratford Upon Avon a licence to market. King Richard, the Lion Top, Richard I, 1196, 800th anniversary fountain, obviously not working today. Coming over here, we've got the world famous, massively refurbished Royal Shakespeare Theatre. The theatres here in Stratford really since the 18th century, many in the 19th century, but really this one started around about in the 1930s. In fact, it was opened, the original building, in 1932 by the Prince of Wales, the then Prince of Wales, the future King Edward VIII. He's the guy that decided he didn't want to be king anymore because he wanted to marry that American divorcee and abdicated. Shock, horror. So he's the one that actually opened this. This recently opened about 4 years ago after I think it was £112 million development project called the Transformation Project. Absolutely stunning observation tower up there, great views of Stratford and the surrounding areas, but if you really want this is Shakespeare, this is world class. If you trod the boards here, you've arrived. Royal Shakespeare Theatre. So we decided to come around the back of the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. Actually this part of it is the Swan Theater, or part of the Royal Shakespeare Theatre Trust. This is known as Multinational Promenade, but I wanted to point this out to you before we head on down. But very nice, elegant lamppost, and then cross pieces. You'll see some characters. You see the little fiddler, the character from Midsummer Night's Dream, and little owl at the top. This was donated by the State of Israel to the city of Stratford Upon Avon, and your sculptor was a man called Frank Meisler. Isn't that nice? So Stratford Upon Avon, known for its many splendid pubs, and particularly good one here actually, the Actors pub. You'll see the pub sign this side, it's saying the Dirty Duck. But if we go to the other side, follow us round, you'll see something else entirely different. Alright, on the other side then you'll see the real name, the official name for this pub, the Black Swan. As I say, it's the Actors pub, but affectionately known as the Dirty Duck locally. I would highly recommend it. Well worth a visit. Enjoy it. It's good beer actually, Green Kings. So progressing through the gardens direction towards Trinity Church, I thought I'd stop here first down on Avon Bank. Now there's a rule of thumb in my game, if you can't see it, don't talk about it, but I'd be somewhat remiss if I didn't mention this. If you're coming down here in the southern months, you really should, because from this point here, operated by Malvolio, there's the chain ferry. You can foot passengers to get on the chain underneath. It's like the ferry's just taken across to the recreation parks, mini golf, the pavilion, and the beautiful parks alongside the banks of the River Avon. So the Malvolio chain ferry down here at Avon Bank in the summer months. So we're just about to leave Multinational Promenade, turn left into Trinity Church, but I just wanted to point out, as you're coming through here, do take notice of the lampposts, because they're all donated by different countries. We saw Israel at the beginning there with the fiddler and the Midsummer Night's Dream imagery there, but this one's donated by Spain. Beautiful, really impressive lamppost there, and we just maybe a bit difficult to see in the distance, but one donated by Edinburgh in Scotland, South Glamorgan in Wales, and so on and such forth. but very interesting indeed, and donated by respective countries here. Multinational promenade. But before we leave, yes, I've found them. There they are, the clean, free ones, right at the very end of the multinational promenade. So that's 2 lots of free ones we found. These ones here, and of course back at the leisure centre where we parked this morning. Clean and free. So at last we've arrived at Holy Trinity Church, Stratford. In fact, Stratford's oldest building, church dating from 1210, although there's actually been a religious site on there since Saxon times, probably about 8th, 9th century. This is where Shakespeare was baptised on, I think it was the 25th or 26th of April 1564, and this is where he's buried. This is where his tomb is. Generally it's free access to the church between 9 AM and 4 PM, although they're closed today. I have to say there's a service going on. They're open till 4 PM normally, but to actually go and see the Shakespeare tomb they do charge, I think it's £2.50. You might want to check that out for availability before you get here. But Holy Trinity Church, Stratford, but a beautiful building nonetheless. But what we're standing on now on the way up to the main entrance is known as the Churchway, and Shakespeare actually mentions this. I'm pretty sure it's Midsummer's Night Dream, but I'm probably wrong, but we'll get to that later on. But this is the Churchway. It is mentioned. It's quite interesting because what they've done here is they've planted this side with 12 lime trees, 12 lime trees, which represent the 12 tribes of Israel. And on this side, we have, in this line, we have 11 lime trees representing the 11 faithful apostles. And just a little ways up towards the church door on the right hand side, set aside, you have the 12th one, which represents Matthias, who I believe replaced or took the place of Judas. So this is the Churchway. Now I just wanted to read you this quick piece here that he does actually mention. Now is the time of night, that the graves all gaping wide, everyone lets forth his sprite in the churchyard paths to glide. So Churchway, I beg your pardon, Holy Trinity Church, Stratford Upon Avon, and burial place to William Shakespeare. Okay, so we left the church, heading into Old Town, and we're stopping here at yet another property belonging to the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust. This one is called Hall's Croft, and it was the home of Susanna, Shakespeare's eldest daughter, and her husband, Dr. John Hall. When they married in 1607, this is where they lived. It's a fantastic visit actually. It's a classic example of a period timbered Tudor building right there, pretty much as it would have looked back in the 17th century. Excellent visit, authentic furniture, and in there you've actually got a mock-up of what a 17th century doctor's dispensary would have looked like. But they've also got some fantastic gardens in there as well, which are kind of like a physic garden, and kind of the medicinal plants that were being grown back in Elizabethan England. So Hall's Croft, part of the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust on the Old Town. A nice one. So we just turned right out of Old Town into Church Street. We're actually heading back into town towards the High Street, but again, one of Stratford's most famous images right here at the Arms houses, laid out essentially in the 13th century by the Guild of the Holy Cross, which are a group of Stratford's wealthiest citizens to give something back to the community, to help out poor people, old people, infirm people. That's essentially what they're being used for this very day, the Arms houses. Towards the end you'll see the chapel tower. The raised bit, the higher bit, was actually the school, King Edward VI Grammar School, where Shakespeare was educated. On that second floor he'd been taught in things like grammar, rhetoric, logic and Latin right there. And the Guild Chapel, so the Guild dating from the 13th century. So these buildings actually probably date from around about the 16th century, 17th century, but founded 13th century. So Stratford Arms houses, King Edward VI School and the Guild Chapel, which we'll be heading on down to now. Wow, we've got real lucky here. We've actually got inside this 13th century Guildhall Chapel, founded by the Order of the Holy Cross, 1269. Absolutely phenomenal. As I say, this is a real rarity, but always check it out when you come down here, see if you can get in. Beautiful windows there, vaulted windows, and you can see, and I think those etchings up there, the carvings, you've got skulls, obviously representing mortality. And if you go through back to the back of the chapel here, some quite interesting stained glass dating, I think it's 17th century I believe. Oh no, actually this one's relatively new, 20th century. Richard Quiney, High Bailiff of Stratford, and was associated with the Shakespeare family. Agnes Clopton and Sir Hugh Clopton, patrons of Shakespeare. And in fact, you'll be able to see right on the right hand side there, John Shakespeare himself had many offices under the council and served as bailiff and justice of the peace, 1568. And next to him on the left hand side is King Edward VI, who's obviously the guy that founded the church. So inside the Guildhall Chapel. Excellent. Delighted. So we've moved out of the chapel actually onto Chapel Street. This gives us a view here of, well, unfortunately today a bit of construction. You'll see some guys working on a house over there. That's called the Nash's house. Again, part of the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust. That ticket would get you in there. That's where his granddaughter Elizabeth lived with her husband Thomas Nash. And here's the thing, when Elizabeth died in 1670 without issue, she was actually the last direct descendant to William Shakespeare. There's none left, actually, which I think is actually quite staggering. However, next to it, once upon a time stood New Place. When Shakespeare came back to Stratford after successful years in the theatre, bringing money back, he had this new place. He bought this place for £60. If you go into Nash's place, you'll be able to see artistic impressions of what people think it actually did look like. But it was about 3-storied house, enormous layout, magnificent gardens to go and visit this day. A rather interesting story here. We go back to the 18th century. Now, the premises was owned by, I think he was a lay preacher, a Reverend Francis Gastrell, and he got so fed up and tired of people knocking on the door saying, could they come in and asking about Shakespeare? He got really frustrated. So what he decided to do, he's a bit eccentric, this guy, to say the very least, but he actually cut down a juniper tree that had been there in Shakespeare's time. Now, the people were so outraged about this, they started like breaking his windows. So he eventually just had enough of it completely and just completely destroyed the house, and was eventually chased out of town. And that's why there's no actual Shakespeare's New Place left at all. Francis Gastrell, thank you very much indeed. New Place on Chapel Street. So before we head into the High Street, still at the end of Chapel Street here, I just wanted to point this out to you. The beautiful terracotta building that is the HSBC Bank. But if you notice above the arch windows there, friezes and scenes from various different plays. Left to right, I think we've got King Lear and then Hamlet, and you quite clearly see the witches at Macbeth. What else we got it there? Othello, As You Like It, Two Gentlemen of Verona, Midsummer's Night Dream, Twelfth Night, and Coriolanus. This side, there's a couple more on the other side, so maybe we should head out and have a little look-see at the other side. So continuing the theme, we come around the other side actually into Ely Street. We're above the main doorway, the old bank there, you'll be able to see that's represents the Merchant of Venice. What else have we got down there? Antony and Cleopatra, this is going left to right. Henry V, Richard II, King John and Richard III. But as we come down to the main doorway again, you'll be able to see an image saying that in the gold mosaic, and I think most people would look at that and recognise immediately that would be William Shakespeare. But here's the thing, all images of Shakespeare come from 3 original images, should we say. The first is a copper engraving called the Trousseau copper engraving, which really could be anybody. I mean, it could possibly be Shakespeare. The second one is called the Chandos portrait, which is an anonymous portrait discovered in the 19th century. The style of dress fits, you look at it and think, yeah, that's Will Shakespeare. And the third one is actually in Holy Trinity Church. It's the effigy of his funerary monument, which you think probably that really would be what he was like, as his wife was still alive at the time, and it was commissioned by friends of his. But all those different images of Shakespeare come from those 3. Fact. So we've crossed over from the HSBC Bank into the High Street and the junction with Sheep Street down here. Sheep Street, incidentally, is where kind of the fine dining, if you like, in Stratford Upon Avon is. All the good restaurants down there for your future reference. But on top of the town hall, yet another image of Shakespeare himself. Very different. Remember, they all come from the original 3. This one was actually donated by David Garrick, who we mentioned early on, for the Jubilee of 1769. By Garrick himself. On the subject of David Garrick, there's the Garrick Inn, wonderful pub, you must check it out. absolutely splendid. Now, Garrick, incidentally, just to repeat the importance of this man introducing the concept, the whole idea of Shakespearean acting to contemporary audiences. Again, he introduced this thing called bardolatry, idolising this wonderful playwright. And he also made the actor's profession somewhat respectable. So David Garrick, very, very important indeed. And there's the Garrick Inn, well worth a pint in there, that's for sure. All right, and so next to the Garrick Inn, we've got the Harvard House, which is known locally as the Ancient House. Once upon a time, the entire building was owned by one family, very rich, affluent cattle merchant and butcher by the name of Thomas Rogers. And it was Thomas Rogers' granddaughter that married Robert Harvard from London. In 1607 their son John was born. In the 1630s they moved to America, to Massachusetts, to set up there, where John became a teacher and a minister, became rather wealthy, had an enormous library, and on his death he bequeathed it to the educational facility that was being set up there in Cambridge. Bequeathed an awful lot of money. I think it was about £3 million in today's money, and in his honour they renamed the site Harvard University. So that's the kind of link here of the Harvard House on the High Street in Stratford Upon Avon. Okay, so we've just left the High Street. We walked up Wood Street through a lot of the busy main High Street shops, and we've come up to this area here on Rother Street, formerly the cattle market, still used as a kind of farmer's market today, once a week. I think it's Saturdays, well worth check out. But more importantly, probably for our American guests, I would think, what's called the American statue. It's a Gothic fantasy, and it was a gift from a Philadelphia resident, a man called George W. Childs, who was just a huge fan of Queen Victoria and the royal family. Decided to donate this statue in honour of Queen Victoria's Jubilee year. And you might be able to see the lion and the royal crest on the left hand side, and of course the American eagle, the stars and stripes there, one on each corner. So the Gothic fantasy that is the American statue here in Rother Street, Stratford Upon Avon. Right, what we decided to do, we're going to head out of town actually and view the other two Shakespeare Birthplace Trust properties. That's Anne Hathaway's cottage, that was Shakespeare's wife, and Mary Arden's farm in Wilmcote, just about 3 miles out of town. That's where his mother was from. So we're going to check those properties out, because obviously we're using that ticket, access all areas. Alright, so we've driven about a mile outside Stratford to the village of Shottery. The reason that is to check out another one of these Birthplace Trust properties. This one, actually looking mighty handsome in this evening sunlight here, is Anne Hathaway's cottage, world famous. You can reach this if you haven't got your own car. The hop on hop off bus will bring you out here from Stratford, particularly if you buy one of those tickets that gets you access all areas. Anne Hathaway, 8 years Shakespeare's senior. This is where she grew up. Her father was a yeoman farmer. He had quite a bit of land here and some livestock as well, but bit of shrouded in mystery of exactly how they met. But certainly we know that William would a wooing go. He'd leave Stratford and make his merry way up here, and yeah, I think they were doing more than kissing underneath the lich gate, because Anne fell pregnant, and back in those days, time to get married, and I think it was 6 or 7 months later the first child arrived. So I think it was a bit of a shotgun wedding. So the first child, Susanna, and then quickly followed by the two twins, Judith and Hamnet. And of course Hamnet, we know that died tragically young. But when the family was started, they moved into the birthplace itself there on Henley Street, so it's quite a tight fit. And it seems somewhat strange that just after a couple of years, a very young family, William then took himself off and went missing for 8 or 7 years into what they call the lost years, and then turned up in London as one of the greatest playwrights the world has ever known, and came back to Stratford Upon Avon, still with Anne, and moved into a new place. And of course that's where he died on 23rd of April 1616, and famously left his wife in his will his second best bed. Nice, huh? So there you go, Anne Hathaway's cottage, village of Shottery, about a mile outside Stratford. We're going to head on up to Mary Arden's place, Shakespeare's mum's ancestral home. So here we are at the second of the out-of-town Shakespeare properties. We're in the village of Wilmcote, which is about 3.5 miles outside the town of Stratford. We have a beautiful timbered farmhouse here. It's Glebe Farm, dates from 1514. But it was here that John Shakespeare, William's father, met Mary Arden. Of course, they got married, I think it was in 1557, and then moved to Henley Street in Stratford Upon Avon. But this is a great visit, actually, it really is. I think of all the properties, actually my favourite. All sorts of stuff going on behind the scenes, and very, very kid friendly, actually. Lots of falconry displays and all that sort of thing. But when it's open in the season, I'd highly recommend Mary Arden's house. Just a short drive out of Stratford, or again, hop on, hop off bus every 15 to 30 minutes, they say, will bring you out down here the height of the season. So this is Mary Arden's house, Glebe Farm, Wilmcote, just outside Stratford. William Shakespeare, born here, of modest origins, in an inconspicuous Midlands market town. Well, you got to think perhaps that moment in the midpoint of the 16th century, when the Middle Ages were giving way to the modern era, time called forth a man, and that man was William Shakespeare, Stratford Upon Avon. Thanks very much. I've been Rich Jones, the Tour Guide's travel guide. Keep following us on the website, YouTube, Facebook and all the other social media sites for our other destinations and updated information. Take care of yourselves. See you around.